Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here this afternoon, we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. A loving father, husband, son, brother, friend, purveyor of bad puns and corny dad jokes, I heard. A devoted scoutmaster, and as his mother Shirley said, the life of the party. Michael Morris was a presence in the lives of those whom he loved and those who loved him. We joined together to honor Mike today, a man who, though he died at a young age, lived a lot of life. Living for the last number of years with neurofibromatosis, Michael did not let it define him. Today, we celebrate his best attributes, we mourn his loss, and we celebrate the man that he was and the impact that he had. I did not know Mike in life the way most of you did, but I spent some time with his wife Janine, his brother Eric, his mother Shirley, who shared with me about the man that Mike was and what drove him. I learned that he took inspiration from his grandfather, whom he never met, and decided to make a difference in the lives of children by becoming a committed scoutmaster. I see many in scout uniform today. His influence is clear. Janine said that the Boy Scouts were how we tried to make the world a better place. She told me that even though he's passed, he continues on in this world through the actions of those whom he led in the Scouts. His work there will keep his memory very much alive. Eric spoke about the time that they spent working together, noting Mike's influence on his clients. Speaking of his work in the family decorative hardware business, I learned about his famous piece of art, setting up door hinges in a sandbox and calling it Stonehenge. It's the bad puns again. It was Shirley, though, who right before we finished our meeting said very simply and eloquently that her son was just a sweet, kind man. And we raise that up today. On a personal note, a bit of an overshare from me. Tonight is the second yahrzeit, or anniversary on the Jewish calendar, for my brother of blessed memory, who passed away at around the same age as Mike. When he died 2 years ago from a brain tumor, he left behind 2 teenagers who, at the time, were 14 and 17. So Ethan and Owen, we don't know each other, but I want you to know that I've seen firsthand the journey of teenagers having lost a father intimately. And what I know is that none of us in the room can really know what you're feeling. But you are at the center of the love and caring of this whole family. For my niece and nephew, the best thing we, the adults, could do was surround them with unconditional love and support as they moved through their own grief, which sometimes looks different than the adults around you, and that's okay. And I pray that you feel safe to lean on the supports around you who love you and have your emotions and your well-being at the center. And let's acknowledge, too, that this isn't where we want to be, where we should be mourning the passing of someone in middle age. We pray, though, that Mike's suffering is ended and that his neshama, his soul, is finding peace in this stage of being. Our Jewish tradition teaches that while the physical body is temporary, the soul is eternal. So today, we gather for sacred purpose, to pray for the full and complete rest from Mike's body. And we note that his soul remains bound to the bond of life, in the bond of life, to each of you. And we seek blessings for the continued elevation of his soul. It's my prayer that our time together today have purpose and deep meaning, in that it honors well Mike's memory, who passed away just a few short days ago. My name is Rabbi Nathan Weiner. I'm the Director of Jewish Outreach and Engagement for the Jewish Federation of Southern New Jersey and our family of agencies. So on behalf of myself, my family, the Federation family, and the Jewish people, it's an honor to be with you all today. Michael Eric Morris, Michael Ben Zev, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory, is predeceased by his father, William Morris, of blessed memory. He's survived by his wife Janine, his children Ethan and Owen, his mother Shirley, and his brother Eric, and Eric's wife Zhang Fenglan. May your love for one another, God willing, carry you through this difficult loss and transition. Today, there are two mitzvot, two commandments that we're performing. First and foremost, we're performing and concluding the mitzvah of kavod hamet, of honoring the deceased. And for most of our time together today, we keep our kavanah, our intention, on Mike's memory. Closer to the conclusion of our time, after we hear speeches and the Jewish memorial prayer, we'll transition to supporting the mourners with the first recitation of the Mourner's Kaddish. Now going to recite Psalm 23, Psalm used universally across the Abrahamic faith traditions at moments of grief and loss. And I'll read it first in the Hebrew, followed by a standard translation in the English. If you're comfortable in either language and would like to say it with me, you're welcome to do so. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo achsar, bin oteshe yarbitzeni al mei minuchoti nahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'maglei tzedek lamatan shemo. Gam ki elech b'getz al mavet lo irara ki atay madi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorarai. Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. V'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orach yamim. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. Amen. From Kohelet, Ecclesiastes chapter 3, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what has been planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather them up, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time for speaking. This is now a time for speaking, as many who knew Michael and loved him in life will share what's called in Hebrew a hesped, or a eulogy to raise up his kavod, his honor. And first, I invite up Charles Smith.
When the skinny new 8th grader with glasses arrived at Abington Friends School in the fall of 1983, I didn't know that our souls were intertwined like the threads of a friendship bracelet. Time would teach that lesson. We slowly became inseparable, talking before class, in class, after school, after practice. When I opened the door to my house on Tulpehocken Avenue, the phone would be ringing and Mike was on the line. Eventually, I watched him make the blessing when he was called up at his bar mitzvah. We could talk about everything and nothing. We tackled societal issues from the death penalty to welfare, racism to economics. We spent countless hours ranking the greatest third baseman in baseball history. Pie Traynor, Home Run Baker, Brooks Robinson, Eddie Matthews, and of course, Michael Jack Schmidt. For junior and senior prom, we strategized about how to ask for our dates, where to buy corsages. Do we pin the corsages? Peake versus Shaw, James Bond versus Don Johnson. He went with James. I decided on Don. He was right. He was there for me when my father died, and I was there for him when his father passed away. Mike was my right-hand man, my shoulder to cry on, my sounding board, my memory. I never had to recall the funny stories and the old jokes. They were seared into his cranial hard drive. He was the optimist to my pragmatist, the possibility to my probability, the bass to my treble, the rhythm to my melody. He was my friend. Time moves slowly when we are young, and then it quickens. Years pass like weeks, and weeks like hours as the responsibilities of adulthood overwhelm the dreams of adolescence. While the scenes of our lives whizzed by, Mike asked me to stop. He insisted that I meet his new friend at a karaoke bar in Center City. I knew Mike wouldn't insist without reason, so I went to the loud and crowded Irish bar on the appointed night. When Janine arrived at our table, she and Mike were so enraptured with one another that I gave up on participating in the conversation after 15 minutes. They sat forehead to forehead like conjoined twins, poring over a single sheet of paper Janine brought with her. The paper had song lyrics from the 80s printed on it, single-spaced, double-sided. The game Mike and Janine were playing was Name the Artist. Time slowed down again for me, not because I was getting any younger, but because this was happening before smartphones were invented and I was bored out of my mind. With all this time on my hands, I started wondering, where did that list come from? Exasperated, I asked Janine, where did you even get that list? She said, my twin sister made it. Of course she did. In the car on our way home, Mike asked what I thought of Janine. My opinion was succinct: marry her. He said, I don't know if she's interested in me. Marry her. But she's in a relationship. It won't last. Marry her. In this moment, the optimist needed the pragmatist. I started going over probabilities with him. How many people would enjoy playing Guess the Artist for that many hours? Very few. What are the odds that two such people will ever sit at the same table? Minuscule. How many people in the world would take the time to produce such a list? A small number. Yet there they were, forehead to forehead, poring over a list produced by Janine's twin. Marry her. You're perfect for each other. And it didn't take long before they were standing under the huppah together. Time accelerated again, and soon I was watching their son Ethan make the blessing when he was called up at his bar mitzvah, like I had done with Mike. The generational circle was complete. On Tuesday, Mike was called up one last time. He was summoned away from his suffering. We were left behind feeling angry at the unfairness of the situation. We have 1,000 what if and why questions, and there will never be satisfactory answers. But my friend taught me optimism. And in his honor, I would like to share some with you. Our suffering is evidence of Mike's love. Our devastation proves the infectiousness of his laugh. Our anger at the unfairness exists because he was wonderful, and every tear tells us how blessed we were to have the time we spent together. May God comfort you among the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Thank you.
To share a short poem, Amy Hungeveld Hill.
Remember me. Speak of me as you have always done. Remember the good times, laughter, and fun. Share the happy memories we've made. Do not let them wither and fade. I'll be with you in the summer sun, and when the winter chill has come. I'll be the voice that whispers in the breeze. I'm peaceful now. Put your mind at ease. I've rested my eyes and gone to sleep. But memories we've shared are yours to keep. Sometimes our final days may be a test. But remember me when I was at my best. Although things may not be the same, do not be afraid to use my name. Let your sorrow last for just a while. Comfort each other and try to smile. I've lived a life filled with fun and joy. Now live on now, make me proud of what you'll become.
And Joe Young to share some words.
Good afternoon. I've known Mike for the past 8 years. When my son first joined Cub Scout units, and I would spend the next 6 years of that as his committee chair. And about 2 years ago, I retired this uniform. So imagine my surprise to wear it again so soon and unexpectedly. To this day, some would ask, who is this scruffy, occasionally awkward, storytelling, campaign hat-wearing man that we call Cubmaster Mike? Well, as some of us know the Scout Law, Mike embodied it by every definition. He embodied the true spirit of scouting, always eager to explore, learn, and lend a helping hand. He lived by its principles of honesty, kindness, and loyalty. Mike's adventurous spirit and unwavering commitment to service inspired us all. At major PAC events and campfire ceremonies, he loved the theatrics. As a film buff, he loved the storytelling, the props, the production value. He loved audience participation, and he anticipated applause. But he also desperately needed support, and he knew he couldn't do it alone. A Cub Master and a committee chair are like two peas in a pod. At least that was true for us. One focused on program, while the other managed administration, organization, and logistics. We did a lot of work together. and admittedly sometimes felt I had the brunt of that load. In fact, he still had me working last night as I prepared this. But we also had an amazing team of dedicated, devoted, and fun leaders that contributed to our experience. A few of those leaders we are fortunate and grateful to call friends today. You know, although Mike and I celebrated some successes and with the occasional after-event libation, he knew that success was not a destination, but a journey that we traveled together, and we certainly had a lot of fun doing that together. I could tell you that at times we adults had more fun than the Scouts did. As I reminisced with a few past leader friends last night, we recalled many of our best experiences with Mike and the pack, our most memorable camping trips, Mike's obsession with certain condiments, his roundabout storytelling, skits, jokes, and his obscure knowledge in just about any subject matter. He was nothing short but remarkable. Beyond his impressive scouting achievements, Mike was a friend to all. His infectious smile, personality, and genuine interest in others was endearing. Whether it was sharing stories around a campfire, embarking on adventures together, or simply offering a lending ear, Mike made that moment memorable and meaningful. In Mike's memory, I would urge all of us to live a passionate life of love, service, and selflessness. To make a positive impact on your own families, to the communities that we serve. Mike, you are deeply missed. Thank you for being a part of my life, being passionate and valuable to the scouting community, to our local community as service to young people, and for simply being a friend. Rest peacefully, and I hope your journey beyond this life is as grand and fulfilling as the adventures you embarked on during your time with us. And until we meet again, may the campfires burn bright in your honor.
John Hannon to share some words.
Good afternoon. The other day, Janine had texted me and asked me to speak for 20 minutes here. I was thinking to myself, what would Mike tell me to do? He'd tell me to talk very slowly. Thank you, Eric, for letting me know that it was only one portion of that. Mike and I have been friends for almost over 35 years. Met Mike a long time ago at a karaoke bar. He liked karaoke, a little bit. From that point on, I learned a lot about him. He taught me things about myself even. He had many things to be proud about, of which you've heard about today. His involvement with the community and scouting was amazing. His love and pride in his family, his immense involvement with his boys. He took pride in his education, and he wouldn't be shy to show it to you. He was very, very, one of the most intelligent people I ever knew. Him and I would have conversations for hours, just going back and forth with, sometimes it was high-tech stuff, sometimes it was sci-fi stuff, sometimes it was just comedy, comical music with Alan Sherman and Tom Lehrer. He had amazing creativity, especially in his film productions, which I got to share with him. He actually had me do a commercial with him one time. I enjoyed intellectual conversations with him, and brain teasers were our favorite. We would bounce them back and forth all the time. And again, I can't forget, we all can't forget his love of karaoke. Is that true? That is totally true. One thing you probably didn't know about him, though, is what was it, 26 years ago? 27 years ago, I'm sorry. 27 years ago, he was going to be the best man at my wedding, and he didn't even know it. We had a wedding, and we were told we had to get married that night. I called Mike up. He said, no problem, he'll be right there, and he stopped over, and he was the best man at my wedding. But what we didn't know is he was also the maid of honor, and him and I would joke about that all the time. Mike is somebody who I will never, ever, ever miss. He was my best friend, my confidant, my best man, and my maid of honor. And I loved him. He'll be sorely missed.
And lastly, Mike's brother, Eric.
Thank you all for coming today as we honor the memory of my brother Michael. Mike was the eternal stubborn optimist. He was always able to see the positive in any situation. Outgoing and able to make friends easily, he would walk into a room, introduce himself, and just go from there. An ability I struggled to develop for my business, he innately possessed. He had a peculiar sense of humor and a penchant for corny dad jokes. And this was well before he became a dad. The most groan-worthy puns were a consistent theme with Mike. He posted a photo on his Facebook feed of a grouping of brass door hinges arranged in a circle in a sandbox. Stonehenge. Ugh, this was typical Mike humor. When Mike met Janine, he found a soulmate who had a similarly off-the-wall sense of humor and a similar penchant for esoteric movie, song references. They were such a perfect pair. Janine allowed Mike to shine. I had never expected that he would be able to find a wife who was such a perfect match, but he did. And together they made two beautiful children in whom they have infused the same penchant for corny puns and oddball references. They are a product of Mike's sense of humor, and they are a part of his legacy. Mike was also a fan of off-the-wall oddball beers. Wee Heavies, Scotch Ales, Belgian Triples. He only wanted me to try them all, knowing full well that these are not the beers that I love. He wanted to have me share in some of his favorite things. We would again and again exchange beer suggestions, knowing full well the other wouldn't like them. But there was always that slight chance. I'll miss the exchange of suggestions and the tastings. In the last 10 plus years, Mike became heavily involved in scouting. Here I think he found something that really gave him joy. He was able to share his upbeat outlook and personality with others. He derived so much pleasure and satisfaction from scouting and his interaction with the kids and the parents. You live as long as you are remembered. Michael touched so many people's lives. Through karaoke, through work, and through his work with the Boy Scouts, he touched countless lives. And if we consider all the young minds he encountered through scouting, Mike will outlive almost everybody in this room. On March 1st, Mike posted on his Facebook feed about his tenure as leader of Scout Pack 3252 coming to an end. In the last paragraph of that post, he wrote, "I am very proud of the Scouts who were in our pack and will remember them all fondly. They hold a special place in my heart, and I hope they will remember their time with us with equal pride. I am sure that they will all remember their time in the pack with pride and will all carry the memory of my brother, Scoutmaster Mike, in their hearts for the rest of their lives. As will we all." Thank you.
It's with all these thoughts and memories and dedications in mind that we move to the central prayer of a Jewish memorial service, El Malei Rachamim, which asks that Mike's soul be granted true rest on the wings of God's divine presence. If it's physically comfortable for you to do so, I invite you to please rise. I'll read it first in the English, followed by a chanting in the Hebrew. O God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant true rest upon the wings of the divine presence in the exalted spheres of the holy and pure, who shine as resplendence of the firmament to the soul of Michael Eric Morris, who has gone to his eternal home. For charity has been donated in remembrance of his soul. May his place of rest be in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, may the All-Merciful One shelter him with the cover of God's wings forever and bind his soul in the bond of life. Adonai is his heritage. May he rest in his resting place in peace, and let us say, Amen. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Michael Ben Zev, Shehalach Le'olamo, Ba'avor Shenadvu Tzadaka, Ba'ad Hazkarat Nishmato, Began Eden Tehe Menuchato, Lachen Bal Harachamim Yasti Rehu Beseter Kenafav Le'olamim, Vitzror Hachayim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach Al Mishkavo B'Shalom, V'nomar, Amen. Please remain standing as we have now symbolically concluded our obligations to Mike, and we shift our intentions to forming a community of consolation around this family, the survivors. This mitzvah is called Nichum Avelim, comforting the mourners. And by forming a community of consolation around them, we enable them to say a prayer called the Mourner's Kaddish. Mourner's Kaddish is mostly in Aramaic. It's got a little bit of Hebrew in there. It's written with Hebrew characters. And it doesn't speak about death at all. It only speaks words of praise and then ends with a prayer for peace at the end. The thinking goes that when you go about the world doing good deeds, doing mitzvot, you get the credit. Except this act would not be happening by these mourners had Mike not died. Therefore, he's the impetus behind this mitzvah being performed. He gets the credit. So we say, may you remain bound in the bond of life. Here's a way that we do that. The goodness that you heard so many people who loved him talk about gets to continue to fill the earth in a tangible, real way. We, being the quorum, this community of consolation, enable it, and God willing, this is an act that brings the family some semblance of comfort as you move through the stages of grief and mourning. If you're comfortable, I invite you to say it with me. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chai echon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar, v'yitalev, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who ordains peace in the heavens inspire us to be God's partners and agents for peace on earth, for us, for all Israel and all inhabitants of the earth, and we say, Amen. Please be seated. Our formal time here together is drawing to a close. A couple of announcements on behalf of the family. First, donations in lieu of flowers may please be made, obviously, to the Boy Scouts of America at scouting.org or to the Brandon Merrick Charitable Foundation at B, the letter B, thedifference.org. The family also invites guests, family, and friends to Brio in Cherry Hill, immediately following for a meal and visits of consolation. To conclude my part with the traditional words of consolation, which Buddy so eloquently said at the end of his speech as well. Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ar ve'lei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May the Holy One of Blessing have comfort for you, together among all the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Zichrono livracha, may Mike's memory be an everlasting blessing.